I'm Dr. Nair, and my business is Mental Notes, and I'm based inside the Singapore Sports Medicine Centre. And I have been in private practice now since 2013, and I work with athletes all over Asia, as well as the UK, the US, and Australia as well. I see a lot of individual athletes and coaches. If I work within an institute, then I probably do more group work, more sort of, seeing the teams themselves and doing group sessions. I do that from time to time, but I'd say the nature of my work is more in my clinic, seeing athletes on an individual basis and helping them manage their issues. I work a lot with parents as well. So I'm a big fan of doing parent forums and parent workshops on a variety of topics. One of my favorite ones is pressure and expectations. And when I do work with young athletes in my clinic, I'd say the number one dilemma I see most is performance anxiety. I think you could think about it like strength training for the mind. I mean, if we think about it, we do a lot of work on our bodies. We can make our bodies stronger and more fit and more resilient, but we can actually do the same for our mind. And that's exactly what we start to do in sessions. We look at patterns of thinking. We look at behaviors as well, and how to actually alter or adjust the way that someone is thinking about certain scenarios, changing the perspective of things, which is the mindset. Okay, so that's how we work on mindset. And then also looking at how all those things influence someone's behavior. And then again, starting to adjust their behaviors so that they start to perform so much more productively, or learn how to get into peak performance more consistently. When we look at anxiety, for instance, we don't just look at the experience of anxiety in terms of what's happening in the body, because it can be, quite an intense feeling. But anxiety actually occurs in the mind first. So we start to look at what is the experience of the person's anxiety in their thoughts. What are they actually worrying about? And then looking at how to adjust that and change that so that then they can do what they need to do when they're performing. Well, you probably think I'm biased because I am a sports psychologist, but in general, when we look at the research, it has been proven to be a huge piece to the puzzle for elite athletes, in terms of that puzzle that helps them to rise to the occasion, to be able to really manage pressure and stress, and to also be able to perform consistently when motivation is not there. And all of these things require a lot of work in sports psychology to be able to do. There's no amount of physical training that will fill that gap. So I would say that it has to be actually much more prioritized in terms of the elite athlete training module and systems. It should be part and parcel of all elite athletes training. I think it's definitely heading in that direction, but I think there's still a lot more room for improvement there. Definitely unprecedented times, which I'm sure you've heard over and over and over again. But in the clinic, I have seen far more adult corporate professionals come through in the past 2 years because of the stress and the anxiety that they have. So what I mean by that is it's work around balancing sport and studies, so that they're starting to look at how to optimize those things a bit more, not just strategies to prepare for competition. We've looked at how to optimize just their belief systems as well about themselves. So a lot more work on the self, which I think will carry forward in the future, but it's a little bit of a different style than what they used to. When it comes to working with the corporate professionals who have lost their motivation, the strategies are very broad and varied, But I will say it's around the strategies that I talked about earlier in terms of looking at the thinking and the habits and really how to take control of those things. At the end of the day, it has a lot to do with how to find that feeling of control again. We feel like we don't have control over, when we travel and what we do. And feeling restricted is one of the first things that will create stress and low motivation. So we have to change that by giving people choices and saying you can still make decisions and choices around certain things. What are they? Let's get the control back into your life. To start to see where you can take your control back in terms of your routine and the rituals that you want to have in place to even help you start the day better. I think there's a lot of things we can do where, sometimes we resign to the fact that we have, all our schedules planned for us, or, we feel like we don't have any control. Sometimes we feel like we don't even have control over how we feel when we wake up in the morning, but it's not true. We can absolutely control these things. And so I think it's like saying, okay, if you're not happy with how things are going right now, maybe sit down and see if you can redesign your routine for the day, if it's possible. You can choose in a lot of ways when and where you would like to have your meetings, making sure that you actually plan some really nice activities, whether it be going outdoors, making sure you have breaks actually planned in your schedule, and even setting up a little ritual in the morning if you've been doing the same thing over and over again, something that just makes you feel really excited to start the day. For some people, it's just going to their favorite cafe and getting their favorite coffee and reading, a few pages of their book. For others, it's like making sure that they have a good breakfast that they love. Maybe it's yoga for others. But refreshing that and saying, this is one thing I have control over right now to set my day. Another thing that I would also recommend is actually blocking space just to think during the day. And this is a strategy that a lot of very successful C-suite managers have done in the past. And this was written about in the Harvard Business Review. And it said that these professionals believe that blocking just a couple, like maybe 2 slots, doesn't have to be long, 15 to 30 minutes, just to keep it blocked and to just think. And sometimes the thinking would be spontaneous, sometimes it would be about planned things, but it can make a huge difference in terms of just pausing, time for yourself and taking control. And lastly, the other recommendation I have is the control you have around devices. I think most people I see who are really unhappy with their work-life balance is there's no control over their devices. It's very, very reactive. There's some techniques where CEOs have applied a routine of only checking emails and WhatsApp at 10 and 2. And that has changed their life, they say, in terms of finding the rhythm with their work and not being distracted by the incoming WhatsApp messages and emails constantly. They also were a little concerned about whether this would work. What if someone needed them? What if there was some urgent request? So they actually would write an email saying, this is my new routine. If there's anything urgent, just call me. And 6 months later, they're still waiting for that particular urgent call. So I think it's really, really powerful to just really say, hey, we can control these things a lot more. And when you do, I think you're going to be a lot happier day to day.